So how did these numbers pan out now that we're past 9/19 or September 19th? Well, much of it has to do with the scenario we hope would be the outcome of what these numbers might mean. And I will reiterate that I received that 909 way back in October of last year, and the 919 around the third month of this year, give or take. And the 919 came to pass, far from the scenario I was hoping for, but there was fulfillment in that funeral was on September 19th, and the eagles, or the kings, did gather. And I'm willing to bet there's a lot that went on behind the scenes, behind closed doors, that's going to kick prophetic events into high gear in just a few days. And I mentioned that there might be opportunity for this newly anointed king, and I mentioned that one of the scriptures concerning the son of perdition might actually be fulfilled during this funeral. Now I thought if that would happen at Westminster Abbey, possibly around the time of the eulogy, where this new king's going to be exalted, as it were, to the status of godhood. And in Matthew 24:15, Jesus said something concerning the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. And I remarked that that may not be the holy place in the temple of Jerusalem, because there is no temple of Jerusalem. Though I suspect that will happen at some point. But I thought, here's another opportunity at this funeral. And I think most of you are aware that prophecies sometimes have multiple applications. So I suggested that this might happen at Westminster Abbey. Well, it didn't. Yet it still may have happened because there were two funerals. The one at Westminster Abbey was for the people of Britain and the Commonwealth. Immediately after that, the Queen's body was taken to St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. There she's going to be entombed, and I hear later will be moved to a shrine being built for her permanent resting place. Well, during that ceremony, the officer of arms, who is fully decked out in his religious uniform, which is covered by that griffin lion, that being the beast of Revelations 13, and which I suspect is according to the Order of the Garter, which is a type of a secret Freemason-like order. Well, this is the declaration he made concerning the king who is standing just a few feet from him.
Let us humbly beseech Almighty God to bless with long life, health and honour, and all worldly happiness, the most high, most mighty and most excellent monarch, our sovereign Lord, Charles III, now, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of his other realms and territories, King, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, and sovereign of the most noble order of the Garter.
So you tell me, the titles in this proclamation declare the new king as the highest of sovereigns, as the highest of kings, and that he was their sovereign and king. Not to mention that this new king was the protector of the faith. Can somebody tell me what that faith is? Because I hear this king, and Pope Francis just dialed in the new one world religion, Chrislam, which is a marriage of their form of Christianity, being a Roman-based Catholicism, joined to Islam and joined to Hebrewism. And I think there's a great probability that all of this is going to be set in full motion, in full expression, and the New World Order coming online completely before the end of this month, probably this weekend. And this declaration, along with the aspirations and the movement of this monarchy, pretty much establishes this new king as one of the main players. In fact, he just recently made comment that he has trillions of dollars currently at his disposal to assist him at saving this world from climate change and epidemics and, well, you name it. So in a real sense, these numbers of 911, 909, and 917 were spot on. Unfortunately, the main problem was I'm left with that number and I got to try to figure out what it's pointing to. And that process is at the mercy of my imagination and my life experience, all to profile what I think our Heavenly Father is going to orchestrate in these next few days, weeks, months, and years. And I have to admit that the storyline that I tried to produce is greatly influenced by my current trials and tribulations and desperations and hopes. So things can get a little embellished at times. And the storyline I'm hoping for, that I'm painting, well, naturally it's going to lean towards a rather sooner than later fulfillment of end-time events that I hope is going to get all of us out of here. Part of that scenario was hoping that there was going to be great signs and wonders in the heavens, and that God was going to deal that up on 919. Well, disappointment has been my daily bread in this quest I've been on to unravel the prophetic concerning these end-time events. And to my surprise, most of this has come to pass with these prophetic dreams people have been posting for the last few years, and even these numbers that I've been receiving, as well as other people have been receiving, where very specific and worldwide events took place, just not on the scale that most of us had hoped for and are still hoping for, like the signs and wonders of things exploding in the heavens, as well as, well, let's say the rapture of the bride. But you have to admit, things are amping up and getting more and more magnified to where denial just doesn't work anymore, that these things don't exist. They're happening. Not only that, they're increasing in frequency and magnitude. And when it comes to seeing numbers, and again, I will say I am not a fan of numbers or Christian numerology, but I'm not chasing after them. They're finding me. And in the last 24 to 48 hours, I have been overwhelmed by them. I mean, I'm going to have that little LED clock of mine gold-plated when it's all over, because I will come out of a deep sleep, my eyes will open, and the first thing it focuses on is that clock. I mean, explain that to me. My head, my face, my eyes, my line of sight, right at that clock. That's the first thing I focus on. And what do I see? 909. Then a few minutes later, I get a text right at 911. And then this morning, I'm minding my own business, sleeping. Boom, I wake up at 1:23 a.m. That's 123. And I've been seeing 321 the last couple weeks, as have a lot of other people that have been responding to my video on numbers. And they're all thinking it's a countdown of some sort, 3210, and nobody quite knows when the countdown begins or where it ends. So I go back to sleep, wake up an hour later, 2:13 in the morning, 213, same numbers. And you know how I hate numbers. But I'm waking up, my line of sight, boom, first thing I focus on, I don't know what to tell you. That's just what's happening. So I go back to sleep, wake up about an hour later, it's 3:12 in the morning, 312, the same numbers that make up 321. So I'm getting just a little bit upset because I'm not getting much sleep, and it happens again just a few minutes later. This time it's 321, 321 in the morning. So here it happened to me 4 times, and I had told the Lord, I said, if you want me up looking for Beetlejuice at 5 o'clock in the morning, which I've been doing now almost every morning for the last month, I said, you need to wake me up because I need my beauty sleep as much as I can get, because there just ain't no vaccine for ugly, and I got plenty of ugly going around. So I go back to sleep again, and I wake up at 4:40 a.m. Well, that's 20 minutes to 5 a.m., and I'm going, you can be a little bit more accurate than that, Lord, can't you? But since I'm up and got about 20 minutes to burn before 5 a.m. when I'm looking for Beetlejuice, well, I got some computer work done, and lo and behold, I look at my watch. It's 4:44:44. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. First of all, I never look at my watch at 4:40 in the morning because it's kind of dark, but I hit the light button on it, 4:44:44. And I grabbed my phone and I took a picture of the time. You're looking at it. Obviously, that was a few seconds after 4:44:44. But I think the emphasis was on 4. I mean, 4 countdowns with 4 numbers, 3210, that's 4. And now I have 4:44:44, suggesting that this countdown is what God wants me to focus on. And what came into my thoughts was actually 2 countdowns, because I had discussed this 3210 with some of the people that left responses on my videos, suggesting that was 3 or 4 weeks from Pentecost, the Pentecost which I believe was the true Pentecost on sunset August 29th to sunset August 30th, which just happened to be the first sliver crescent moon of that Hebrew month. It was the first day of the month, and that was the month basically of this September, the harvest moon. And the last visible day of that harvest moon will be the sliver crescent waning moon of September 24th. Exactly 4 weeks from this year's Pentecost on sunset August 29th. How's that for a countdown? 3, 2, 1, 0. And as a possible confirmation to all this, this happened at 5 o'clock in the morning as the 19th of September, 919, came to a close at the International Dateline West and where a good chunk of the world was now observing the 20th of September. And looking out my window on the south end of my house, this is where I spotted Betelgeuse and the constellation Orion, in the very location that I talk about in the video where I'm tracking Betelgeuse, where I specifically mentioned that God showed me this branch in one of my trees. This is God messing with my trees again, which is totally fine by me. And I state that if I were the Lord trying to give me a message, this is where Betelgeuse will be at a very special time. I was hoping it would be when Betelgeuse goes supernova, because it will, according to the scientific community. They're all expecting it any second. But I said, if that branch kind of represents, let's say the finger of the Lord pointing, as well as a big pine tree coming up from the bottom of your screen, well, where those two vectors intersect, I would think God would put that there as a confirmation that these numbers and these processions and these heart alignments are from Him. And here's a picture of my guesstimation from the earlier video, and it was uploaded and posted many days ago now, so it's there, it's time-stamped, it's real. Well, Betelgeuse landed right on that very point. So the 3210, the number 909, the number 919, the number 911, which I all explain by the video I entitled By the Numbers. Again, you can just pull your cursor up to the right-hand corner of the screen. That circular iCard will come down. Click on it. All the videos will come down. You'll find that video and the other videos on that menu. Check them out. It gives the day they were uploaded and or published, and many of the things I said were represented by these numbers came to pass. Now, if I was one of God's prophets, I would have been more accurate. But since I'm not, and since I don't claim any title, especially prophet or watchman on the wall, then you just get to live with my guesstimations, because I get to live with them, and they were fairly accurate. And this new one I get to live with is a 4-week countdown from Pentecost and the Pentecost moon of September, which is a harvest moon. Well, that 4-week countdown put it exactly on September 24th. So is something going to happen on September 24th? I don't know. But here comes the second countdown. If you didn't notice, all of this happened in the early hours of September 20th. How about a 4-day countdown? Guess what that day would be? September 24th. And I have learned over these last many years that when God wants to emphasize something, He will double emphasize it, sometimes triple emphasize it, and sometimes quadruple emphasize it. How about 321 4 times? How about 4:44:44 on my watch? I mean, if these things happened arbitrarily over months or weeks or years, yeah, it means nothing. But this all happened on that one morning of September 20th. And 4 days later, September 24th. There's your second count. We have a count of 4 weeks. We have a count of 4 days. Wow, I wonder if there's something going on out there on the world stage that could possibly shed some light on this, or at least give us a hint. So I Googled it, and there is plenty on YouTube concerning this. This is Frederick Merz. He would be the equivalent of the minority leader in our Congress, but he is the head of the Democratic Union in the German Parliament. And I believe he has aspirations to be the German Chancellor if he get a shot at it, and I think he's tried a couple times. But being the head of the Democratic Union in the Parliament, he knows a few things. And in February of this year, he got up and made a speech in front of the German Parliament where he basically said that on September 24th, 2022, well, something's going to happen where everyone, and I don't think he was talking about everyone in the Parliament, but more probably everyone in the world, well, they're going to remember that day and where they were on that day because of this big event that is supposed to happen. Now, I'd put that speech up there for you, but it's all in German, and it'd be faster if you just go Google it. One of the Christian YouTubers, Joseph Z, spelled Joseph, common spelling with a Z after his name, does an excellent job of reporting this along with a few other items. If I remember, I'll post his link to that posting in the description box. He deals with a number of items, this being one of them. And we should probably consider that Frederick Merz is the minority leader of the German Parliament, and Germany is all over the Old Testament as an end-time nation, being a main player of the one world order and the beast system. And this guy has ties to banking and legal stuff, which has groomed him well for his current position as the Democratic Union leader in the German Parliament. So I'm guessing he has some pretty deep connections. So I'm thinking that he was thinking that this has to do with a world event, not something in his political career or personal life. So let me ask you this. What would cause you to remember where you were on September 24th? And this coming from a man who's probably deeply dialed in to the one world order. So in the morning of September 20th, I'm experiencing all these numbers, and I mean a lot of them, and they're all pointing to September 24th. And I'll remind you again that September 24th, 2022 will be the last visible phase of the moon for the harvest moon of September, which I also call the Pentecost moon. And let me reintroduce two of the prophetic dreams that I originally played in that 5-part series on decoding 2 moons, 4 moons, blood moons, tetrads, planetary alignments. Well, in part 2 and part 3, I play the 2 YouTubes from Crystal Clay and the other young lady that calls herself Heavenly Treasure. And at first, I misdecoded what these moons represented. I thought they were pointing to the 4 moons of the tetrad we're currently in. But after much trial and error, I was basically forced to reevaluate it again and again. And it's very clear to me now that they're talking about the harvest moon or the Pentecost moon of September, and probably the complete moon of September, which is coming to an end on September 24th. Take a look and take a listen.
I had this moon dream again, and I woke up and I drew this picture. So over here there was a tower. I'm just not really a good drawer, so I didn't draw the tower, but it was kind of like a, you know, like a hunter's tower where they go sit up there and hunt. Well, it was kind of like that, but I remember it was right here, and all I wanted to do was get somewhere high so I can see these moons, like the ones in the trees. I could see this one clearly, but he wanted me to look over here in the tree lining at the other moons. Now, they were white. As you can look up closer, there's a little blood tinge in them. And that is because as I was looking at the moons, they were slowly disappearing. So he gave me this urgency to hurry up quickly, go look at these moons because they're disappearing. And when I got closer to look at the moons, they were slightly turning a little bloody and they were disappearing. But this one was really red, really, really red. And I remember my feeling in the dream was very excited fear. It was like a healthy, excited fear. I remember I was so fascinated. I wanted to look for these moons. I wanted to see them. I was trying to push people out the way nicely, like to get up there to see these moons. And there were other people in the dream, but like I said, I don't know how to draw very good, but they were just scattered around. Now they had a different fear. Their fear was like a real fear. It was like a shock fear. They weren't running around. They were just still and they were shocked in fear. My fear was more excited. I have to see this. And I also remember in the dream that my thoughts were thinking of Jesus. His name was in my mind in that dream. I remember I was thinking about him returning. And those were my thoughts in the dream. That was the way I was feeling in the dream. And
I wanted to do another video talking about this specific dream that I had on May 12th, not too long ago of this year, 2020. I had a dream that I saw a big moon, okay? It was big, right in my face, big moon. And in this big moon, it was a little bit hazy, like it was hard to see the clarity of the moon, but then it became more clear. It was a big moon, really big. And then on the upper right side, I saw a normal sized moon, the kind of moon you normally see from Earth. Like when you look up, you see the moon, it's that size. But this moon right in my face was a huge moon, okay? So there's 2 moons in my dream. Then I see on the upper left side of the sky, or the galaxy, I see 2 planets. And near these 2 planets, I see a meteor coming down from the upper right side down. So I see a meteor. And at that moment in the dream, I began to speak in tongues. And I was filled with so much joy, and then in the dream I began to speak in tongues, and at that moment I knew the rapture was happening.
Now, the reason I'm reintroducing these two dreams is because they point to the harvest moon of September. And in that 5-part series of decoding moons and tetrads and blood moons and planetary alignments, well, in the beginning, it looked like everything was going to that super blood moon on May 15th and 16th, which is the true Passover. After that came and went, then other dreams showed up, especially the planetary alignments. Well, that pushed it into June and beginning of July. In fact, I thought these two dreams were representative of the tetrad pointing to May 16th. Well, 4 supermoons, May, June, July, August, followed by a orangish-red harvest moon, that's September, that's this month, followed by a hunter's tower, that would be the hunter's moon phase of October. Well, that means that Crystal Clay saw the diminishing harvest moon as the time of something rapture, of something being the return of Christ. And the second dream here of Heavenly Treasure, I think saw that last full supermoon of August, and that regular moon that followed that, well, that moon started on Pentecost. And she said she spoke in tongues, and there was something about the rapture. Well, that second moon she saw, which was a regular moon, that only happens this year in the month of September. And that moon completes itself on about September 24th, 25th, when it finally diminishes or wanes to a zero illumination. So now we have a better rendering of these two dreams, dreams that I started with in my adventure to try to decode all these dreams that I got wrong. Sorry, got them wrong in the first place, but this is not an exact science. This decoding stuff is uncharted waters, let me tell you. But now it's clear to me that both Crystal Clay and Heavenly Treasure was talking about the moon phase of September in a diminishing state. And that's exactly where we stand right now. So, as of the early morning of September 20th, it appears I have 2 countdowns, 3, 2, 1, 0. The first being the countdown of weeks, and now a countdown of 4 days from that 5 a.m. encounter I had with Beetlejuice on September 20th. And if that is the case, well, God revealing the 24th of September to me lets me know that He's in total control and not to sweat it, just reside in His rest. Oh yeah, September 24th is a weekly Sabbath. Is that day going to be a Rapture event day? Or Beetlejuice finally popping off into a supernova? Which indeed would be a galactic prophetic fulfillment of the sign of His coming, which I talk about in the last couple videos, where in Luke 17:24 and Matthew 24:27, Jesus said the sign of His coming would be a flash of brightness or luminous that would span the heavens and would move from east to west. And I point out, lightning doesn't do that, so this is not a lightning event or a weather front. So that's on the table as a possibility as well. So Beetlejuice becoming something other than it is right now, that is to say from a star to a supernova, wouldn't that get everybody's attention? Well, I'm not predicting anything. I'm not going to say if something is or is not going to happen. I have performed far too many face plants over these last many years as I chase the rapture down. And I, nor any other person, can give a definite on what these things are that will be fulfilled and or when. So I'm just sharing with you things that I've been seeing, things that I've been trying to figure out, things that other people have been seeing and try to figure out. And by sharing with you how these things have unfolded these last couple days, these last couple weeks, you might get a good understanding of how I'm coming to my conclusions and grant me a little bit more latitude if I get carried away and embellish what a possible storyline might be that reflect these numbers and the things I've been seeing. And my greatest encouragement would be take it at face value and make sure you're doing everything to deepen your relationship with the Lord, because that's the bottom line. You can have all this stuff figured out and it will remain worthless unless you have that relationship. Because if you are watching for the rapture and you don't have that deep relationship with the Lord, well, you're just going to be here watching it. And it's my estimation that He's coming back first for His bride. That is to say, He's not coming back for the guests at the wedding. He's not coming back for the bridal party. The first people He's coming back for is the bride. The others, well, they weren't red hot for the Lord. And there's this thing called tribulation that's going to heat things up. So be the bride and nothing less. And you're welcome to consider these many things and numbers and confirmations and impressions that I'm sharing with you and see if the Lord doesn't speak to your spirit concerning what they mean and possibly what could happen on the 24th of September. Maybe nothing's going to happen then, but the world leaders say something's going to happen then. Stand by to stand by. I will wait and I'll watch and we'll see if something does. Maranatha.